Hello, I'm Ruth Veloria. I'm the Chief Strategy and Customer Officer at the University of Phoenix. And I'm delighted to talk with Jill Koziol today, who's our guest from Motherly. And we're going to be chatting about the challenges of motherhood and being in the working world and thinking about the solutions, the barriers that moms face, and ideate and give you some creative thoughts about how to move yourself forward in your working world. So love to introduce Jill and have her say a few things about herself.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me. It really is a pleasure. My name is Jill Koziol. I am the co-founder of Motherly. We are a well-being platform that is empowering mothers to thrive. About anywhere from 20 to 40 million women per month engage with our platform, from our podcast to our content to our books and otherwise. And we're so excited to be partnering with the University of Phoenix.
It's been a great partnership that we have. We've done some recent studies on working moms because as a University of Phoenix representative, we serve mostly moms actually at our university, and they have a lot of struggles with some of their careers and they're coming back to school to progress. And it's been great to do this work that we have on really studying, going deep dives and looking at the different socioeconomic layers, what's happening with our students. And I know from my takeaways, I really was struck by how the different economic layers face different challenges. One particular thing that struck me was just the access to childcare. I mean, I know how I manage that as a mom. Jill, I'm sure you've had different experiences too, but that seems to be a real problem. How do you react to that?
Yes, this is actually the number one problem that mothers are facing right now. It is what is keeping women out of the workforce, and mothers specifically. And childcare, what you're looking for, what moms and parents in general are looking for, is affordable, accessible, and high quality for childcare. And they can very rarely get all three. And it's really holding them back and making parents and families make really tough choices about their financial options that they have available to them. And it's keeping women, our most educated cohort in the economy right now, out of the workforce.
It is, absolutely. And what I find, in looking at the situations where moms often find themselves in starting out in early careers, we have our moms in retail or in healthcare or maybe in the social sciences, and they don't have as much flexibility. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to that childcare, that really, I can see how that becomes that barrier, because if you don't have the ability to stop off and take a kid to a doctor's appointment, you're going to find yourself in a lot of situations where you're not able to keep up, perhaps, with some of your male counterparts.
Yes, and that's what the mom report found also, is that not only are they struggling with childcare, but that struggling with childcare is forcing them to take on multiple jobs because they can't take one full-time 9-to-5 job, which would maybe at least somewhat align with childcare availability. They're taking jobs and they're really pulling together with neighbors and some unpaid options for childcare. And it's really making women feel and mothers feel very overwhelmed and really feeling as though they can't succeed and that they can't even consider that they have a career. Right. They're just working to keep ends meet.
Yes. Career is a luxury, so to speak. And it's hard if you don't have role models further up an organization. As moms are putting together like a patchwork quilt, as you say, of care, how do you then be able to look even ahead in your organization and say, wow, I can aspire to be like this person? Because often mentorship, networking, our social capital is really, really important to have career growth. I mean, how do you succeed when you don't have anyone to look up to?
That is the challenge. And even those women that have moved into the middle management layers, they too are struggling. They are having to, in the office, pretend that they are not parents, and then at home held to an expectation that they are fully present and available and don't actually have a job. And so for them, finding time to mentor those entry-level workers or people that they believe have great high potential and the ability to move up in their careers is incredibly challenging as well. And so identifying and finding mentorship and frankly, prioritizing that for those that are in leadership roles is incredibly important. And I really believe we have a responsibility as we move up in our career to pay it forward and to help lift up others with us.
That's so true. Yeah, I have several folks reach out to me to be a mentor here at the University of Phoenix. And I think it's really, really important to recognize and help people go through their struggles. I mean, struggles as simple as, maybe there's a small microaggression because people aren't really used to the fact that you have to leave early if you're the primary care child, that person that day. And people start to sort of look at you a little bit differently. And that can lead to ultimately that career limiting step that happens when you can't get that next opportunity.
And that's what the mom report found, is that mothers do feel that once they became mothers, they were being penalized in their careers. And so that mentoring, my advice, frankly, is to just ask for it. So not only do the people that have moved up in their career have a responsibility to share their experiences and be a little vulnerable, frankly, about that you're still struggling also, to normalize that, but also that entry level group or that lower economic group that is struggling to find mentors, it's about asking. And to your point, I mean, it sounds like you are mentoring other mothers in University of Phoenix. How did they come to you? How did they?
I mean, we have some great core values here at the University of Phoenix: brave, honest, and focused. And we have a lot of brave women, honestly. And they will pick up the phone and send me a message and say, I wish, I could learn some things from you about how to progress in my career. And that's how mostly it started for me. Other times I may have been on a project and I felt someone, was really trying to grow into a role, and I've taken them under my wing and kind of given them advice to do things like that,
That's exactly right. I know so often women in leadership can feel almost unapproachable. And that it is important to know that, again, these are women that are struggling, that have been in your shoes before. And everyone has a story and a bag of rocks they carried to get to where they are. And so asking those, I get people to send me notices just on LinkedIn and say, like, I'm working on this thing right now. Like, might you be able to talk to me, like, just 15 minutes of your time? And I love those opportunities to share and to give back and to help inspire, because I do believe in that. If you can be it, if you see it, you can be it. And I think there's power in sharing stories and sharing experiences and helping people be able to see themselves in that. And at every education level, at every economic level, those things matter.
At the end of the day, we want to get our women to be in those industries where they can have that more flexibility, right? We've talked about some industries where, again, it's harder in retail, it can be harder in healthcare, unless you have certain shifts that you can work to be more flexible. So it's fascinating. I thought the other day, looking at the degrees that men pursue. If you look at the degrees, it's finance and it's computer science and it's technology. And some of these jobs are work from home. I can program from my basement. I think if we can encourage women to take a look at some of those careers too, and think about all the creativity you can still express. Yes. I mean, the shift to remote working is really a good thing for moms, but finding those industries where you can be successful is obviously going to be the key strategy that you want to be able to engage moms in thinking about, okay, how can I be more flexible? What careers can I learn? And I think, part of it is having our employers, frankly, step up and educate moms about the different skills that they could take on, and they could start getting into different projects, take on new roles.
Well, have you found, as someone who's managed people and teams, and as you've grown up in your career, what new superpowers do you see mothers bringing to the workforce, translating from motherhood into the workforce, that you think maybe moms are not capitalizing on enough in their professional life? Yeah,
I think for me, it's that notion of calm. You've got a lot of kids all trying to get out of school, running around with their socks off and not finish their breakfast. How are we going to get them in the car? And I know moms often comment that about me, that somehow there's this pervading sense of calm, even though in my head I have a million things going on and practicing and getting ready for the day. So I think that sense of just the calm before the storm, and then the ability to negotiate. Right? So
negotiating with a 2-year-old, you can negotiate in a C-suite.
Yes, absolutely. And, how do I prepare a high schooler for, okay, you're going to have to trade off. Are you using the car? Are you not using the car? What's in it for me? How do you relate back and forth to each other? I think that ability to really connect and understand where people are coming from, and then how to align them best with the type of positions where they could actually
Yes.
give their best
That's great.
at work. So I really think those are special skills that are coming from mother. Not that our husbands can't always pull those off
For sure.
as well.
But they are ones that women are still typically the primary
Right.
caregiver or the default parent, as we say sometimes, and carry a lot of that mental load of parenthood. And with that comes all of the skills that you just outlined that are really applicable and in business. And also, I'd say even just the ability to multitask.
Yes.
And to strategize and plan ahead.
Yes.
And to productivity, I feel like actually really went up for me once I became a mom. My time became so much more precious and so much more valuable. But it was balanced. So in some ways I was a bit more transactional with getting things done, but those new relationship skills also kind of counterbalanced that to just make me highly effective.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That planning ahead is so important because there's just so many pieces of the puzzle you have to put together. And I think I was talking about having a spreadsheet, who needs to be picked up where, who needs to be dropped off where. I mean, spreadsheet skills, those are
really good point. That's a great point.
They're really important in the workplace. And, I think that there are these special superpowers that moms have for sure. But then there are also skills that we need to learn in the workplace. And we're really relying on our employers, I think, to step up. Like there's a few key changes that employers can really make. And maybe we start out with childcare. There are some places that provide childcare that are excellent. But then there are other places that are not going to be able to afford to do that.
Exactly. It really is a challenge. As we've talked to employers and we've talked at the government level, lobbying for this as well, there's no clean, fast answer for this. I found a lot of employers were really interested and went very deep on studies to see, can we have on-site childcare? Yeah. And then they got into liability and insurance and all of these other things that started to make it really not possible for them financially, because ultimately everybody's got a boss. A business has investors and others and such. And so it starts to get it cannot be a truly private-only solution, ultimately. This really will need to be a public-private partnership and a recognition and a valuing of caregiving and of the need to have dual incomes in today's economy.
Absolutely.
For those of us that do have partners, like increasingly in today's economy, you need both parents working in order to sustain a family.
Yeah, this is so true.
And so we need to have childcare resources for them. And as I said, it needs to be affordable, accessible, and high quality. And so much of this country, especially since pandemic funding for childcare has gone away, we are seeing childcare deserts and true market failure, economic market failure, where there is a real mismatch between what the parents need and want and what the market is able to provide it.
Yes. And, that even starts way back in maternity and paternity leave, obviously. Not every company is able to provide that either. Yes. When I think about, though, the economics behind that decision, I think we have to really imagine our moms who are coming to us, who know the company culture, they know the values, they have the knowledge that's inherent in their business process. I think imagining trading that off with hiring a new person and the slow productivity ramp it takes to bring that person to speed, I think employers really do need to think about the economic trade-off and really try to invest behind that maternity, paternity leave.
You're 100% right. And I think anyone in HR and anyone who's looking at the actual P&Ls too of a business understands that cost of a leaky pipeline of female talent.
Right.
We were talking about this earlier, that this is the first generation. Millennials are the first generation in which women are actually more educated than men.
Yes.
As the most educated cohort in our economy, we need them working. Right. We need them adding value so that our country can maintain this economic engine that we are. And so in order to do that, we're going to have to solve for this. And it is, we're in a tipping point, I think, where these things need to be resolved.
Yes. I mean, whether it's the cost of education, the cost of childcare, we're really at this place where employers are going to step up and play a big part of their own, their own role. And I think growing people from within is a really important topic.
Right. And that retention, to your point, there was a few years ago, there was a study, I won't name names, but there was a bank, an investment bank, very large in the US that ran a study because they were noticing that they had a leaky pipeline of female talent. And they started to question why, which is great. Awesome. Found a problem. Let's ask questions. Let's find out what it is. And what they found was not that these women were leaving the workforce, they were just leaving that employer. So after they had their children, they were moving on someplace else. And the reason that they were doing that is they needed to be able to have a new identity as a parent, as a working parent, and to feel honored in that and not held to the 100-hour work weeks in this particular bank that they were being held to. And that was really impacting the bottom line for this business, because that then losing a middle manager who, to your point, you have spent time training and learning your way of doing things, that is immense cost to the business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel very fortunate. I was in one of those kind of companies where people might work 80 to 100 hours a week, and found myself able to be able to negotiate a way for me just to work 4 days. I went to a financial services company, did the same thing, was just able to work 4 days. And when employers embrace that type of flexibility, it really does help keep talent in an organization.
And we found in the Mom Report, actually, that mothers said that if they were offered development and educational opportunities from their employers, that they would stay. They would be loyal to that employer. And we found that at Motherly. We have flexible work hours, even because we're work from home, full-time work from home since 2015. And that we also have hours where you only have to work 6 hours during the 8-hour period. So you can catch up in the morning or catch up in the evening. So you can be there for preschool pickup if you need to, or the doctor's appointment that pops up, or frankly, the yoga class, right? And that then allows you to feel as though you're contributing on both parts and you're not having to always sacrifice. And that offering that type of flexibility and then offering development opportunities on top of that, that really creates loyalty with your team. And then they're out there recruiting for you too. They're out there singing your praises.
Just again, that education point is key. So you do feel like you have that ability to go craft a proposal, have the critical thinking to, come out of a situation and, really start to attack the employee situation. But as you think about employers, are there other elements of the landscape besides employers? Like, where else do you think we could be making a difference?
So I was talking with a friend about this recently. We were talking about how we constantly hear these different sides that feel so on the outskirts of where most of the people we feel like are. And I know through the State of Motherhood survey, which Motherly runs every year, that there is so much more that unites us than divides us. I think so often women and mothers diminish ourselves. The story we tell ourselves is that we are an island and we're the only ones that don't have it figured out, and that we are scared to make those vulnerabilities known. But there is power in those vulnerabilities. There is an opportunity to actually light a fire of change, frankly. And so telling stories, being open about the challenges that you're facing. The most viral LinkedIn post I ever did was one where there was it was an article at Fortune or Forbes that talked about how executive women are less likely to admit the amount of help they have at home than men. And so I read the article and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. But we're doing a disservice to that next generation of people coming up to think that we've got it all figured out, because I'm confident we do not. Right?
No, for sure.
And so I posted and I shared every bit of help I have.
Okay, yes.
Every single thing that it takes, because when people say, oh, how do you do it all? My answer is, I don't. And so I think there's no matter what level you're at, talk to your friends, talk to the people around you, share what you're struggling with, realize you're not alone, and then take your feet and your fingers and your voice to the legislative bodies, the people that are making these decisions for us.
That's a wonderful summary, Jill, of the forces that we have in our education, the forces that we have in our legislative arena, the challenges that moms have, especially that focus on childcare and flexibility. I mean, this is how we feel at the University of Phoenix. We're providing moms those ways to, get ahead and learn something about themselves, to educate themselves. And being flexible is really a lot of what we're about as well.
Yes.
And so we just want to thank Jill. It's been a fabulous interview and lots of great, I think, ideas about ways we can advocate for ourselves.
No, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for the work that University of Phoenix is doing to elevate the needs and the challenges and ultimately solutions for today's working moms.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.